So now let's move smoothly to the debate that we are waiting. The debate that is entitled Art and Living in Space. So let me invite here on stage Professor Thales Russomano from InnovaSpace and Javier Rodríguez González from CDTI PERASPERA, Mateusz Józefowicz from European Space Foundation, and also our guests joining us in a virtual form. So I have a bit longer list that we have here, but Dr. Dolly Daou from Food Design Lab, Dr. Niamh from working on space communication, Andrea Merlo from Thales Alenia Space, and Ben Haldeman from LifeShip. Did I miss someone? No, I think we are all here. So, yeah. So I will sit in this side. So pleasure to oh, maybe I'll just move it here a bit to make it more symmetric. It's a very interdisciplinary team that we are hosting. Some of you are already have been here at the stage. Those guests that we have online not, and also Mateusz was not here. But I wanted to ask all of you, just for a short, even those of you who already answered that question. So what's your connection to space, in the sense that, could you please introduce yourself and say in one sentence or two sentences, what happened that you are here, and what's your connection to space? So maybe we can start with Mateusz, since he haven't been talking before.
Thank you. Welcome. Very nice to meet you and to see you here. My name is Mateusz. I've been involved in organizing of robotics events and running a robotics company for some years. Generally, my background is not in engineering, but I'm a child of Star Wars generation. So and yeah, here we are. So I think this is very relevant to talk about art and space. They are interconnected. I'm not an active artist, but I always find it an important counterpart, and I'm happy that we are able to talk also about the more, not only about the hard technology, but also about art. It's interconnected. So yeah, but I'm running also space project, R&D space projects. So I think you can connect it.
Thank you. Professor.
My name is Thales Russomano. I'm a medical doctor, so my connection to space is through medicine. So space medicine, space physiology, in academia, teaching, researching, publishing, and also in the private sector. Now I have a company called InnovaSpace that also does research, innovation, teaching, education, and outreach.
Javier.
Hi, hello everybody. I'm Javier Rodríguez. I work at CDTI. That, for the people that don't know, is until the next year in 2023 that we are going to establish the Spanish Space Agency. CDTI is doing like all the work that a normal space agency is doing. I'm an engineer, robotics and automation, but also I love art. So when I see the title of this debate was, okay, this is really interesting, something different that are going to be able to motivate. And I think that is something really, really nice to listen.
Thank you. So, and our guests online, Dolly, maybe?
Yes, thank you for the invitation. So my connection to the space and art, I'm a food design expert, and I was introduced to the outer space actually by Thales, who are missing being in Poland with her and with Anna. And I'm also the chair of New Eating Habit at Cumulus Association, which is the largest design association for design education association in the world. So Thais invited me to actually publish a blog on her InnovaSpace business webpage titled Inhabiting the Red Planet. And from the interior design perspective and food design perspective, how would we inhabit Mars?
Yeah, maybe Niamh.
So good morning. It's 4:30, 5:30 where I am. So excuse me if I'm a little bit buggle-eyed. I'm an educator and communicator. I've a background in engineering and science, and I'm kind of on a sort of a lifelong experiment, and that's sort of the art of what I'm trying to do. I'm very interested in the stories we tell ourselves, and particularly for people who have a difficulty around science and STEM. So I've set myself a task to see if I can get to space to communicate it and also to educate on it. So that's one part in it. But then I have a company based at the International Space University in Strasbourg, which deals exclusively with communication and education around the topic of using space to engage people more in the subjects of science, technology, engineering and maths. I really care about space, I always have. And just like Mateusz, I'm a Star Wars baby. And I always found that there's something deeply philosophical about space, no matter who I speak to, whether it's a young child or an adult. I can always find a way in to bring the human aspect of space to them whenever we talk about what they believe the moon to represent, or maybe they saw a launch, or maybe they're science fiction fans. So I think artistically, there's definitely an overlap between science and technology and art whenever we mention space to people.
Thank you. Andrea?
Hello everybody, Andrea Merlo from Thales, Alenia Space Italia touring plant. And I'm an engineer. I worked on most of the projects that were presented by Stefan a few minutes ago. And personally, I'm connected to art, so I'm very happy to be here and glad to be here. So thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. And Ben?
Hello, I'm Ben Haldeman. I'm founder of LifeShip. We're saving the DNA of all different species from Earth and humanity to send in capsules to, one's on the International Space Station, we're on 2 rockets to the moon, and the big vision is to send the code of Earth to the stars. And we're also saving a cultural archive of humanity, and that includes art and music and all the incredible things we humans create. So we're saving a forever record of Earth and humanity in space.
That's really a really wide range of interests of our speakers. Thank you. One of the image that comes to many people's mind when we think about space is a pale blue dot. It's our planet seen from space. That if we go further, is just like a little dot. So we are talking here a lot about space explorations. Yesterday about Mars, today more about Moon, and we are coming closer and closer. So to our planet Earth. I wanted to ask an open question to all of you, how we can make living on the Earth better by using space exploration. So how space exploration can contribute to that? Because it's all about Earth at the end, right? If any of you would like to answer, I'm happy to listen your answers.
Well, I can start then. In terms of my area, medicine and life science in general, everything that you learn outside, or wherever you are, could be in Earth's orbit or on the moon and one day maybe on Mars, it will for sure give us enough or more knowledge about humans here on Earth and can help with our understanding of our physiology and diseases, clinical expression of diseases. On top of that, telemedicine did not start, it's very important to to make it clear, did not start with the first flight to Gagarin in 1961. It was really boosted by that. It was very clear that in space we would need telemedicine. And here on Earth, we also need telemedicine, digital health, in many situations, in wars, in natural disasters, or even to help populations that live remotely, in poor conditions sometimes. So I think that there are the knowledge that can come from knowing more about human beings in a different environment, plus all the technology, medical devices or digital health, telemedicine that we develop to help these people in the exploration of space, and that can be transferred to Earth very easily.
Andrea?
I think there is a huge possibility of technological transfer from space to ground. At the end, we have every day to face very difficult challenges with completely different means in space. So usually we resolve problems in a different way with respect to ground application. And this is why probably part of the technologies that we develop in space will be very beneficial for ground. Even for life sustainability on a space station, we have to find, I would say, tricks to reuse everything and don't bust anything. So that is the main concept of creating a space station. So this is one of an example, but there are a lot of technologies that we develop for space that at the end they spin out to ground applications.
Please, Dolly.
Thank you. I was actually going to talk about from an interior design point of view. So we've become like a consumer society where we consume without thinking about the purpose, about the size, about the planet Earth, whether it's furniture, it's food, architecture. So I think I was reading an article about IKEA and how they're adapting their furniture to fit on on Mars. And I think there's a lesson to be learned there about adaptation, about purpose, downscaling our lives so we would not be using a lot of resources from Earth. Because IKEA has to do that in order to transport the furniture from Earth to Mars. Maybe we can start doing that on Earth before, learning our lesson of how we're going to live in Mars.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm going to take my headphones out because I can sort of hear myself. The big thing I think about space when we talk about the topic, it allows us a chance to look outside of ourselves, because I think as a species, we always think we're in charge or we're in control somehow, that, we're not on this planet it's orbiting about a star, and I think to have the ability to step back and reflect on that is important. And it's easy to say that when you're in the thick of the business, but for a lot of people who feel that science or space isn't for them, they don't get that moment to reflect. And I think when you see yourself differently and you develop a different relationship with the planet, which is where I think ultimately sustainability and taking responsibility for taking care of our planet really begins. So how do we get 8 billion people to see that perspective without them actually leaving Earth? Because I think if everybody saw what we hear astronauts describe as the overview effect, this moment when they see the Earth in its entirety for the very first time, that all of them talk about this seismic shift in perception, about the bigger picture, about what it's all about. We are just one species on this beautiful planet that has given us everything we need, the oxygen that we breathe, the water that we drink, things that we completely take for granted. So if we can kind of see ourselves outside of that, I think we develop a much more nurturing and grateful relationship with the planet.
If I may, I totally agree. But if you live in a house and your roof is leaking, you do not fix it from inside. You have to go outside and to see the bigger picture. And I think that we are leaking, unfortunately, right now. Our roof is not really safe anymore. So we really have to look from the outside. But we can also have some good examples and lots of things to learn, not only about space resources, as we've been talking during this conference a lot. So not to gain new resources, but to learn to use the resources efficiently. We cannot learn it on Earth. We know that we do not have enough discipline to build a fully closed circuit economy on Earth, because there are always connections to other ecosystems and it's interconnected. If you go to space and try to build a self-sustainable habitation system or any closed circuit system, this is the only way to survive there. So we can learn, and we can either move to other planets in a better model, or just transfer it back to Earth. For hopefully it can be adapted to our problems.
So if we smoothly move to the topic of art. So we can easily imagine that art benefits from space and from space exploration. So we have a lot of inspirations coming from space, pictures and everything coming to art. How does it work, in your opinion, otherwise? So can art contribute to new discoveries? Can it inspire the discoveries, especially in terms of space exploration?
I can start again.
Yeah, please.
I love art in general. You know, all expressions of art, from dance to music to paintings and sculptures and so on. So I was connecting, let's say, space with art for the first time in my life when I was invited to give a module about space and design in a university in Finland, Aalto University. And my goal there was to show how much our art and design and architecture and so on are really based on gravity. You know, we do everything, we design everything here. A chair, a sofa, anything is based on gravity. And my goal there was to break this idea from the students' mind. They were artists and designers, much better than me for sure. And then the idea was to exercise how we can create some objects or furniture or anything, in fact, that can be used in space without gravity or with less gravity and so on. So if you look at paintings, for example, the way that you start painting something is it follows gravity. Everything somehow is dictated by gravity. We take it for granted. It designs us, our mind, and our art. So I think that for this new moment that we are having, space tourism with new space stations, hotels, and so on, possibly a habitat on the moon very soon, and then one day on Mars, we are going to need this adaptation, let's say, of art, these new expressions of art. And then I went further, and I have a colleague in the Philippines, that is an astronomer. And he used his skills, his math, his very advanced math, to take the sound of a star, of the magnitude of the light of a star. And then he sent that to me, and we with colleagues from the area of art and artists, we created, let's say, an expression, a dance for that stellar music. So I think that there is a huge relationship that can be expressed in many different ways for art, design, architecture, and related fields. And thanks to that, Anna, here present, and Dolly, not here present, but virtually here present, and a friend of us from Finland, Eija, we have a group, a working group called Space, Art, Design, and Architecture under InnovaSpace that promotes this type of discussion and different artistic expression, let's say.
That's cool. Thank you.
Okay, if I can.
Sure.
If we understand if are going to improve exploration in the way of science? I don't think so. But one thing that is clear is when we arrive to Mars, for example, we are going to be in a really hostile environment. And art could help a lot to make us part of us and make us easier to live there and survive. For example, in the ESA, they have been doing projects with the rovers to do like kind of Zen garden that at the end was similar to the to Mars surface. Is if we use art to create something that will making us feeling like we are at home when we are on Mars and we as part of the planet, will be much more easy to live there. And also, art in general is exploding the creativity, is helping us to express the feelings. So also all the music, the painting is helping our mind to overpass a little bit all the problem that we have with the insulation. So that's the point that I see the art for the exploration, because at the end it's helping us to live better and make like Mars or the place that we are going to be able to live comfortable there and suffer less all the problem that we will have from insulation to being an hostile planet and all this point.
Thank you for the input. Yeah, please. Maybe you can start with Ben.
Yeah. So space is a domain of dreamers, of imagination, of wonder, of awe, and art brings all that to life. It brings the power of creation into a person's hands, and the power of an imagination, and so it brings this futuristic, disconnected, far away, immense thing to life, and it also connects a person to their dreams and connects to an inspiring future. And so art really connects people with space and brings out people's imagination and brings it to life.
Please, Dolly.
To me, I think art is connected to architecture, of course, and to design. And as a designer, life without art would be boring, of course. Especially if we're going to start a new colony on Mars, we have to start with the process of creativity, which is about experimentation and which allows us to expand our way of thinking our lives. I bring like one example by here Baroton architects, and who basically collaborated with local artists to create this inflated Martian house in Bristol. And it's an experimentation about inhabiting Mars. So they have hydronic plants, they have experimentation living, but I can't imagine architecture doing this on its own without collaborating with artists to bring in the creativity of experimentation and experimental living, really. And this is the time to do it in Mars.
Andrea wanted to add something, right?
Yeah, so to me, the idea is art is thinking out of the box, while engineering is really try to find a solution to a problem. So sometimes when you have a problem that is too difficult, engineers cannot solve it because you really have to think out of the box. So sometimes you see scientific exploration mission in which there are ideas that are just crazy, and they come from a completely different environment with respect to the engineering and the people who use to work in space. So this is, to me, the main benefit that you can get from a different, I would say, discipline to the engineering world.
Please, Niamh.
And if there's time, I think it's a really interesting question, because there was a time when there was very little distinction made between art and science. You know, if we go back to Greek and Roman times where we sat around and we discussed philosophy and science in the same room at the same time, the Renaissance occurred because, you know, around Paris, scientists and philosophers and artists were meeting and discussing together, and they were all inspiring each other. And so I think art inspires science, and science also inspires art. If you look at the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, I mean, that's a perfect example of, you know, you've Arthur C. Clarke writing and bringing in his scientific expertise about space, and you've got Stanley Kubrick at the same time imagining, but both of them actually inspiring each other. And the book was being written while the movie was being made. So we all have the capacity to be creative and artistic and scientific and logical. And I think something has changed in the last kind of couple of 100 years where people try to box you in and say you are one or you are the other. And that has led to some idea that innovation isn't creative, design isn't creative, it's not art. I think all art and all good art is where you take two types of thought or a number of types of thought and you present them in a new way and in a way that makes complete sense to us because it's filtered and it's really clear. But isn't that a really good idea? Isn't that like a really successful mission or a really beautiful robot or whatever? So art is constantly contributing to science, but it's manifesting itself as an engineer who comes up with an amazing new concept, or as an architect who comes up with a fabulous new habitat, or somebody who designs something completely off the cuff from something that they're reading or that they're watching or that they're having a conversation with. So I think the sooner we bring these two worlds closer together and just let them be and let them coalesce, I think the more we will just naturally go back to this idea that philosophy, art, science, that it's all creative, it's all about curiosity, and it's all about coming up with new ideas. So always art inspires science and science inspires art, in my opinion.
And I think that sometimes, I completely agree. Oh, thank you very much. I think that it is, nowadays we can see the evolution of that. Now, I think that it was very well said that art and science were together in the past. And it's evolving somehow nowadays to artificial intelligence, creation of, for example, Mars habitats. So you have the technology, you have the science, and you have this artistic representation that in the past was basically given by, or still no, artists designing something, an artistic representation of habitat on Mars. And now you have the software, sophisticated softwares with the artificial intelligence that can create and express very colorful, very sophisticated, very creative habitats on Mars that might serve science in terms of, let's say, as an example, as a suggestion of what we could have or can have on Mars one day.
One type of art is actually picturing of the discoveries and picturing of the reality that is created by engineers or by scientists. And this has always been connected to space as an outreach tool, but also we even know Alan Bean, who was an astronaut that became a painter. From Apollo program, and we have two hemispheres of a brain, and the best results if we use them both, so the artistic and the realistic. So it's just the trick to learn this balance and to optimize. But anyway, an artist can create a reality, a space reality or Earth reality in apparently easier way, not necessarily that easy. They wouldn't agree probably. It's pains, but it appears that they can create it individually, while engineers always have to work in a team. It's a team effort. It's embodiment of this vision. But in fact, if you look at our last 100 or so years, all the inventions and all this technological stuff that we are using today has not been invented by engineers. It has been invented by writers, actually. So they are the first seed. And if they've written it a bit differently, the soil, so the stuff, the pool of the ideas that the scientists and engineers draw would be a bit different, because I guess it's not the only way. So we have different paths, and the artists always are able to show the path and inspire, and then it becomes natural. So they are a part of a process, I would say.
And on top of that, I think that we have to agree that the spacesuits have evolved with this combination of engineering, technology, and designers. No, because if you look at the spacesuits nowadays of SpaceX, for example, crew, it looks much better. No? It has a better appealing to the eyes, and it's now technology, science, and art working together again. Design working together. No.
Also, same with the capsules, right? And
same with the capsules, and of course, yeah, it's the environment itself is much better now. No, it is. It evolved, of course, for many different reasons, but even the design of the environment, and it affects the person. I think that it was shown here just before this session, the cupola of the ISS, which is a place where you can go there and have your moment of privacy and take pictures of Earth and listen to music. So, and it was basically designed for that. So you have 6 windows there facing Earth. So it is, I like very much this very inter and multidisciplinary approach of human space exploration, and art, design, architecture definitely must be included there.
I 100% agree with Thales. I mean, the perfect example is we're talking about engineering. The helicopter was invented by the United Nations. And we can't talk about inhabitation without talking about the human body and the anatomy and the art of living, the philosophy of actually living on the red planet, on Mars, without thinking about gravity, about architecture, how we're going to build the structures, how we're going to sleep, how we're going to move. And a perfect example of this collaboration is what we're doing with Thales, for example, Anna and Andrea. This combination of design and science, where I'm thinking kind of about interior design, about food design, and then Thales is thinking about anatomy, and Anna is thinking about the outer space, the mission, all that. So we live an example of our business.
So if we think a bit more about the future, we talked about art, and we know art is more and more, even nowadays, it's somehow connected also to artificial intelligence. And we see many aspects of using artificial intelligence in space exploration. So in your opinion, or in the background that you have in the field of your expertise, how the AI will change the space exploration, and where the borders also?
I think that we are going to rely a lot on AI in terms of for medical care and monitorization of the health of astronauts, their well-being. I think that it is mandatory to have a very sophisticated AI there with lots of medical knowledge, because we need to make the crew very autonomous in terms of many aspects, but especially healthcare. If we go to Mars one day, we discussed that in this meeting before, but we are going to have a delay in communication that could range from 3 minutes each way to about 24 minutes each way, plus all the other aspects related to not just communication, but to the delivery of healthcare in a very, in another world, in another planet. So I believe that for the exploration of space, human exploration of space, AI will be it will be our ally. It will be very important for prevention of diseases, treatment of diseases, incidents, accidents, and things related to the environment of the habitat or the spacecraft. So I feel that it's very, very, very important.
Okay, if I can say something. In the future, artificial intelligence are going to be everywhere. It's true that the main part are going to be in all the operation that could be in danger for the humans. So that will be done by artificial intelligence. But also now we are already using artificial intelligence for all the training of many expert system to analyze many of the information and the data that we are receiving. Already for Mars, like we have this big communication delay, the rovers are using artificial intelligence to avoid all the obstacles. Also, like we cannot have the operator always supervising the rover. We have also investigating opportunistic science. That is autonomously the rover are going to be to take picture of the interesting rock. Analysis could be interesting from the scientific point of view, and if it's interesting, they will send the picture to the command center, but are going to be everywhere. Also, for example, now that we are analyzing all the debris around Earth, soon all the satellites will be able to autonomously avoid all the debris. Also, for managing this big constellation that we have now, all the operation that the positioning between the different satellites all will be done by artificial intelligence, analyzing all the information that we have from Earth observation, all is artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence are going to be everywhere in the future.
Andrea?
Yeah, I think Javier got the point, because at the end, this is what is growing as a complete revolution on Earth. So we are slowly accepting the role of the artificial intelligence in our world. And as soon as we will be ready to accept it, something that is a computer that thinks like us and decide instead of us, then it will be the big change and boost both on ground and on space. We already see easy things. There is a ramp up. As I said, in space, there is, let's say, a sort of autonomy that is easy autonomy that is implemented by rover spacecraft because of delays that we cannot overcome, and so we cannot tolerate. But that is just the first seed of the artificial intelligence. And on Earth is already growing, like, for example, the Google car, just to take an example, or the metro that is going autonomously down our cities. So it's growing, and it's probably going to be the big element of revolution in the next 20 years.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's all good, right? So I'm going to throw a spanner into the works, because this is where I feel like where art can really help people understand the potency of something like artificial intelligence. As an educator and a communicator, I love space, absolutely love space, but sometimes things happen at a pace that the everyday person just can't keep up with. So if we have a society in 10, 20 years' time who don't fully understand the power and the potency of something like artificial intelligence, and don't really understand the reasons behind why it's being used, we're kind of going to be in a position where, you know, there's a saying in English, you know, the tail is wagging the dog, you know. So it's not my area of expertise, but I'm always, when I hear about artificial intelligence, I'm always a little bit cautious about its use, because it's so powerful. When we set it free, we have to be sure that we understand the parameters of what we're using it for, and that we have a say ethically in where it goes moving forward, because it can have profound effect on us as a species. So it's like, for me, to feel comfortable about artificial intelligence, I feel like 8 billion people have to understand what it's about. And it goes back to me, to the point of education and why I do what I do. So we just have to be really, really careful when we talk about artificial intelligence, and that we have to always make sure that we're in charge, because it is, you saw there a few weeks ago on Twitter, I think it was an employee from Google left because he realized that this computer that he was working on was sentient. This artificial intelligence system was sentient. So what does that say? And when you look at movies like Her, which I absolutely love with Joaquin Phoenix, what's to say that we don't get to that point where we create almost another species of computer systems who feel and who think and who have a consciousness? And we look at science fiction movies, we look at like Blade Runner, which is essentially that whole notion, like, with replicants who have souls or who feel they have souls, and robots, even today's robot challenge, so where is the line? And so the future of AI is extremely potent, but without an engaged society that really understands the technology and of where we're going and what we aspire to be, we need to be really careful. That would be my take on it.
We have recently seen that AI can be a good artist as well, because of the music or painting that is being created or co-created by AI. But this art is indeed different. There is certain feeling in reception that makes the audience feel that it's not been created by a human, and this is really interesting. For now, it's only very synthetic, but in the future, it may become perfect. But speaking of AI's role in space exploration, every decent spaceship has a hull on board or mother, and so there is this overseeing system that is intelligent, except Dune, where they actually expelled all the computers. So there are two visions. I think that the vision of Dune is more utopian, because we cannot I cannot see how it can be expelled, and this is a danger right now, because even very simple systems can be considered intelligent to some extent, or leading to intelligence if they grow or become dispersed. So the line between intelligent and non-intelligent system is not clear, and we have to be careful. Indeed, I agree.
Yeah, AI is a huge accelerator, and it'll accelerate our ability to care for our planet, and it'll accelerate our ability to spread life and consciousness in the galaxy. And I believe those are two of the big roles of humanity and our prodigy, which is likely AI, which follows us. And so I think there are huge consequences and tremendous challenges and tremendous ethical questions, and I feel AI can be a huge accelerator in doing good and expanding us outwards.
So, taking all of the things that we talked about into account, how, in your opinion, the world will look like in 50 years? Our Earth and things which are going on around the Earth and a bit further. So in 2072, you wake up and what?
I want to wake up because I'll be dead in 50 years' time. But I believe that it's very difficult to predict now. I mean, that I don't know if 50 years ago someone could predict what is happening now. So it's very hypothetical. But let's say ideally we are a more, let's say, peaceful world, more mature as society, more civilized. Maybe that's a huge dream. And I believe that we will be living and exploring the moon for sure, possibly Mars, and we will become more like a cosmic species. But I don't think that we are we should be really very proud of our civilization now. I think that we have lots of very, I would call, I don't know if the right word, but still very primitive type of issues. So with all this technology that we are discussing, exploration of space and AI and so on and so forth, and we are still very, in terms of society, in terms of organization and society, we are still very primitive in many aspects. And so it's very difficult to say. I hope we are still here on Earth in terms, I won't see it, as I said, but I hope that for the young generation that's here present, that you'll be old by then. Believe me, it's going to pass. Life is going to pass, and I hope you will have a better Earth to live on.
Yeah, I do agree with Thales. I think the way that the civilization is going, I would like to be optimistic about the future, but if we keep going like this, I don't think we're going to have much of a healthy Earth. Having said that, I know that probably in about 2 or 3 years there are missions to be sending humans to settle on Mars, and architects have been already commissioned to design habitat the Martian homes, if you like. So we will have 2 planets to inhabit in about 50 years' time, but it's very difficult to see what the state of the two planets will be. So I do hope that we will not repeat the same mistakes we've done on Earth. We'll repeat them. We'll take our problems with us and our mistakes to us.
Okay, for sure. Is it really difficult to imagine how are going to be life in 15 years? And probably we are not going to be, all the Star Wars generation are not going to be alive. But also is not, I will say, life in 50 years are not going as we are thinking, are going to be as the young generation are thinking. Luckily, she was saying that the society is still primitive. I will say that we have failed. If we see the Earth now, there is many problems everywhere. But luckily, the young generation, they are growing and studying, knowing all the things that we have done wrong. So I would like to hope that in 50 years, they will create an Earth that is worth living, that will solve all the problems, that there are going to be a balance, and we are not going to destroy the Earth. We are going to be still there, and we are not need to escape to Moon or Mars to anything, because still we can solve all the problems, and I hope that the new generation will be able to create the solution that we need.
After listening to this wonderful discussion, I kind of feel optimistic. Despite the problems, I think that we as a space community or technological community are in the best possible moment. Because when space becomes routine in 50 years, it may happen that it will be consumed by those primitive problems that we have in our daily lives. So I hope that we can prevent it and keep the frontier vivid at all time. But I think that still, like we want to have a beautiful car today, or a nice car, we want to have a beautiful spaceship. So the aesthetics and design will be the part of the game, not only the efficiency. This is of course art, but this also brings some differences in status and things that are unnecessary, just to that we will be spending money not for exploring and technology, but for making our life in space more easy or lazier. These are the things that can happen. I don't know if this is gonna happen, but there is a danger that it can happen. But anyway, right now I think we are at the best moment where we can shape, and we have the problem, but we have also opportunity to solve it, and this is the opportunity to make it right this time.
I think we're at a stage. We just heard the previous presentation about ESA's plans and us having a European astronaut on the moon. That will definitely, all things going well, happen in the next 50 years. And if we think about how so many people were inspired by the first time we saw humans on the moon, I would hope that would help people see ourselves as a species differently. I think certainly having the first woman on the moon finally as a woman is something that gives me a great sense of hope for the next generation of women that come behind us. 50 years isn't a very long time in terms of space exploration, but I hope from my own personal priorities, I hope that thanks to space and thanks to these constellations of satellites, that maybe education will be more equal. Maybe we will have a society that is more equitable, where there is a better sharing of information and education, and that people are more engaged in science and art around the world, and that as a consequence of that we develop a better relationship with our planet, that we can take better care of it. But I am an optimist and it is what fuels me. So I think that's quite ideological of me, but I hope that we will achieve maybe even 25% of that wish list in the next 50 years.
We live in such an incredible moment, such an incredible decade, and the next 50 years are exponential. And we have so many visionaries that are building incredible technologies that will have global impact on all the challenges on Earth, on the democratic systems, on governance, on how we care for each other. And we live in this massive awakening of people coming into their hearts and learning to care for each other and for our planet. And then the space technologies are exponential and just about to enable a multi-planetary civilization. And so all this will happen quicker than we can imagine. We're rebirthing our new planetary civilization, and we're on our way to be an incredible galactic species and galactic civilization, and care for Earth and spread life in the universe.
So, thank you. Well, it's super exciting to discuss with you all these topics, and especially we have some young people also here in the audience and watching our broadcast live, although the time is running and this is something that we cannot overcome yet. So thank you very much for the discussion, and thank you for joining us from many time zones that we represent here. So we wish you a fruitful day or night or afternoon, and we get back to our Rover challenge here in Kielce, Poland, and sending you a lot of greetings. Thank you.